roll.
Yeah.
Commissioner Ranella?
Here.
Commissioner Hightower?
Here.
Commissioner Webb?
Here.
Commissioner Goss?
Here.
And Mayor Butler.
Here. This is a special meeting called for the purpose of allowing anyone who cares to address the proposed tax levy ordinance for next year. Anyone desiring to make a statement in regard to that is welcome to do so. The corporate special purpose property taxes extended for last year, or this current year, was $1,539,946. The proposed corporate and special property taxes to be levied for the year 2016 are $1,797,800. This represents a 16.74% increase over the previous year. Steve, would you want to hold forth?
Yeah, can I explain it? Yeah, if you recall, and if you look, the reason for the increase is due to our fire and police pensions. As you all know, the state mandates to the city how the operations will go, what benefits are paid out under the fire and police pension plans. Okay, that's commonly known as unfunded mandates, where the state says, okay, this is what we passed. City, we're not going to give you any money to take care of it. It is your problem. And for years and years, we have funded then that unfunded mandate with property tax. Fortunately, the city has been able to basically fund very little other than that through property tax, other than just fire and police pensions. You know, a lot of places fund salaries, debt service. We don't fund any of that. We fund fire police pensions, and then a small amount then we fund for recreational purposes, which we can use at different places. Right now we're using it at the Hub Recreation Center. When you look at the total, our total rate per $100 of assessed valuation last year was a hair over 50 cents. Now you got to take into account that on the total property tax bill, that rate was over $7 per $100 assessed valuation. So that means of over $7, the city's portion was only 50 cents.
And people,
So we're talking a very small portion of the total property tax
People
bill.
understand that $7
Exactly.
was their
That's why people need to understand.
County real estate tax bill.
Exactly right.
Right.
Yeah, that's not affected by the
No.
8 cents.
That's right. The 8 cents I compute, without taking into account exemptions, just taking a house valued at $100,000. Okay, that last year their property tax would have been roughly $167 for the city portion only. Okay, and this year, based upon what we're saying, what we think the assessed valuation is going to be for the total city, if it's more than that, then this amount will go down.
Yeah.
Exactly. That the amount that we're saying it could be, but no more than, would be $193 of the total property tax bill, of which means it would be just a $26 increase. So you look at the 16.7% and say, oh wow, that's a huge amount. But when you break it down to dollars, it's really not much effect on the total property tax bill, because our portion is so little to begin with.
Yeah.
We had one lady who called City Hall, and she was quite upset. Said that she and her husband pay $5,000 a year in real estate tax, and that 16% increase would mean they pay an additional $700. And they were quite upset about that. So we had to go through the explanation which you have just now given. And she finally wound up, she was reasonably well satisfied to learn that the increase was really going to be substantially smaller than what she had anticipated.
Right. Now, the one thing we cannot control, of course, is what the other taxing bodies, what kind of increases they could or may not have. Of course, when you look at the school district, the Johnny Logan, the Park
Port
District.
Authority, the county.
Exactly, all of them. I mean, and those are separate taxing bodies which we have no control over at all, of course.
Well, the park district's kind of, they're limited to 5 cents.
Well, some of them are, yes.
Yeah, they're at their limit.
Well, yeah, some of them are under the POT, or whatever it is.
Park District can't levy
That's
anymore.
based on the
Right,
assessed valuation of the city.
right, yeah.
That's our only viable funding option, doing a property tax increase, or is there any other options out there that we've explored in the past other than every year raising taxes?
There's really not, because the one thing that we're able to do, for instance, other facilities cannot, we actually fund all of our debt service through sales tax,
Well, and I haven't read it.
which would just be much lower. If we had to levy our debt service, it would be a whole lot more than what this number is. But we pay all that through sales tax.
Yeah, and you and I have discussed this before. I think, unfortunately, and it could be our fault. We ought to explain it better. The mayor did put out an explanation that got to the paper that I think that eased a lot of people's mind. But this is statutory in nature. This is mandated under the Downstate Fire and Police Acts of how we fund our fire and police pensions, and one of the sources is property tax. So, I mean, and as you said, it's an unfunded liability, but it could be a lot worse because, but
Yes,
it's
it could
not.
be. Yeah, because the way it's set up, if we do not fund this, or we don't adequately fund it, then the pension funds, which are separate entities, would have the right to contact the state, and they would withhold other funds from us in order to pay this, which then the only alternative the city would have, unfortunately, then would be to, we literally have to come down to be laying off employees. So, I mean, this is the only way we can do it.
Yeah,
I mean, we couldn't, if we don't do this and don't pay in, I mean, they have the right to,
You look at our
Collect our money.
unfunded liabilities compared to other communities down in this part of the region, we're in good shape.
Relatively speaking.
Relatively speaking,
relatively speaking, our funded percentage is in good shape, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
No, nobody's in good
It's going to
shape.
get worse every year.
Yeah, we're just better off than most of them.
But, and that's, it's just something that, that occurs once a year, and it seems like we're placing the fault on the fire and police departments, and it's not their fault.
No.
It is mandated by statute how we fund this, and they just happen to be called firefighters and police officers.
See, the legislature is responsible for the state's woeful lack of funding pension. And they can't figure out what to do with that. And yet they're telling us what we ought to do or need to do. There's something wrong with that picture. But now this increase of 8 cents on the assessed valuation of all the property in the city, which is about we figured around 300 million.
Yeah, but I use 310 million, yes.
310 million. Okay, this 8 cents is going to raise $258,000. That's the difference
Yes.
between the levy
Yes.
last year and
Yes.
the levy this year. And so I think that we're doing the best that could be done under the circumstances, and we're making obviously, with the low rate of real estate tax imposed by the city, it, I think, is obvious that City Council is doing everything it can to protect the Marion taxpayers. Would you say that?
Yes.
Steve,
Yeah,
are we
yes.
capped, like the Park District, or I know some of the county
No.
councils capped, so we're
No.
not capped?
No, we're not capped because we're home rule.
It's just our own diligence to keep it low, though, so.
Exactly. And we've been able to do some things in the past to keep from such a large increase as this, but this year we just kind of ran out of things to be able to do. In order, we were just bare bones, like I said. We're paying, except for police and fire pension, and a small amount for recreation, which we have not changed in 3 years, the amount that we're levying on that. We pay everything else in the city with other sources of revenue.
See, the lifeblood of the city really is the retail sales tax. We get a fair amount of money from the state for the income tax. Of course, we get motor fuel tax, which works for our streets and sidewalks. So these are principal sources of income. And because of our aggressive efforts to attract new business and expand existing business, we're able to sort of keep ahead of the game. And I hope that continues. That's why when we have new businesses come into town like Culver, IHOP, Jimmy John's, Huddle House, all of those that have come in this year, they're generating sales tax. And we're making every effort to make this keep this a business-friendly community, because the sales tax is so important for us.
Yeah. And then the other thing is too, last year, when we did last year's levy, we actually were able to have a slight decrease. So really over a 2-year period, when you look at it, if you take that 16.7% over a 2-year period, it's it's really less than a 9, just over an 8% increase for each year for a 2-year period too.
Yeah. So, okay, having said that, do we have anyone who has a question? Or yes, come up.
Jerry Beasley.
Come on over here.
Jerry Beasley, I'm a real estate broker in town.
There's a mic there.
The real estate tax affects the climate in Marion a lot. I mean, each one of you have made a very reasonable explanation of the tax, and it's very reasonable, it's understandable, by state law, what you're needing to do. But each and every one of the taxing bodies, anytime they need to come up with any money, figure, well, we'll increase property tax a little bit. I had people come in Marion area to look. They come in from Wisconsin, Northern Illinois, Minnesota, look to maybe settle in this area. They look around, they like the area. They go over in Missouri, they go down in Kentucky. They come back to me and says, we just can't afford this area. So we're just losing a lot of homeowners' growth. We're growing in business-wise, but because of our tax rate, we're just losing a lot of potential growth for this area. And each taxing body comes up with this. You mentioned that this is one of the sources of revenue. Is there any other sources of revenue to fund this? I mean, is sales tax possible?
You see, yeah, you hit on it. Well, frankly, our city tax is probably one of the lowest in the area, number one. But sales tax, we feel that we have imposed the maximum that we can impose on sales tax if we're going to remain competitive with other area communities. Now, if the state income tax distribution goes up some, well, then it's going to benefit us and would probably delay or completely defer the necessity to raise real estate tax. We have relied on other sources of revenue Now, we have no control over our share of the state income tax. Absolutely no way for us to do anything there. The motor fuel tax, that is set by the state on the distribution. So the major sources of revenue, other than the sales tax, are out of our control. Now, have you talked to any of the other taxing bodies?
I know what all the other taxing bodies, they're all high, and we're not higher than most of the other ones. I look at tax rate. People want to look at property. One thing they want to know is what is the tax rate per thousand on this property? I mean, that's become a major issue.
Yeah, and you see, we feel that we're being at a disadvantage because out of the $7 tax rate, only 58 cents is coming to the city.
And I agree.
Oh, okay.
Marion is not the major contributor
Okay.
of the increase in tax.
Exactly. Now, let's get that straight. The other taxing bodies, I'm sure, feel that they have no choice because they have their obligations that they have to meet. Now, how is this thing going to be addressed or turned around? I think a whole lot depends on what the state legislature does. The state legislature's got a lousy record. And it's been that way, and it keeps deteriorating. Now, what can we do about it? Very little, if anything.
Well, you mentioned sales tax. You didn't want to increase sales tax, but we keep increasing business in Marion. Isn't a projected increase in the amount of sales tax income based upon sales, is that a possibility that can be funded through that? I'm just looking, I think every taxing body should look at any other possible way to fund whatever they need to fund, and only as a very, 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 very last resort, depend upon that homeowner out there that's trying to make a living and keep going up on
Well,
taxes.
now, you have to be realistic. The county is the only other taxing body that has any control over sales tax. The Airport Authority doesn't, John A. Logan College doesn't, the Marion Unit 2 School District doesn't, the Park District doesn't, so it gets narrowed down pretty well. Those taxing bodies have only real estate tax as a source of revenue. Now, how are you going to address that?
Well, what I'm addressing is the fact that you're talking about the increase in the amount of business in Marion.
Yeah.
That increases the sales tax. So you project the increase in the business, that ends up to be an increase in the sales tax income. Have you looked and see if that'd be sufficient to fund this measure other than raising rent?
Well, yeah, but you see, you're overlooking something. And that is that the expense, general expense of the city keeps going up. So we get a little increase in our sales tax. It's pretty well eaten up by the increase in the cost of our government. It's not a simple proposition. Suppose that...
I'm just asking, has that been looked at?
well, yes.
Well, and Jerry, you need to understand too, and if you've looked around out there in the West, the city obligated a lot of monies to make that happen. We got a substantial debt service that we're paying down. And, would it be safe to say, we made that area attractive to business?
Absolutely.
Because of the obligation that the city took and the monies it spent to make it that way. Now, yes, there were developers that helped too, but, when you see those roads, the sidewalks, the storm sewers, water, sewer lines, we were the ones that had to pay that at a considerable cost, and then that's got to be paid down over years. Hopefully, in a couple of years, as that debt service goes down, maybe some of those monies can be used to offset increases. I don't know. If nothing catastrophic happens in the city.
Because we're using sales tax to
Yes.
retire those.
Well, and we have a cash reserve ordinance that we keep so much there. If something happens, we should be able to pay our bills for 2 to 3 months. debt service ordinance that we hold ourselves to make ourselves a better government. And yes, we obligated a lot of money to make that happen out there, and it is happening slowly. Well, I shouldn't say slowly. We got people knocking on the door every day, but they're not necessarily building. But hopefully, in the next couple of years, and maybe some of that money could become available to offset this cost.
See, we anticipate the bonded indebtedness that we currently have to be retired, paid off in 5 years. Now, that doesn't help us now to relieve the pain, but it is something to look forward to. And the reason that the bonded indebtedness can be paid off in 5 years is because of the conservative financial policies that the city council has had. We've tried to keep everything in balance, and believe me, it isn't easy, because we're always faced with an increase in the cost of government, plus increase in wages for our people. This $258,000 would not pay for the increase in wages and peripheral benefits that we're going to be obligated to pay in the coming year. This is a complicated thing. But I would suggest, if you want, that you talk to some of the other taxing districts. But I'm telling you,
And I agree. Marion is always had a very tight conservative budget as far as tax, and it's evident there. But the city of Marion, along with all the other taxing districts, come up with some need for funds, and they just automatically go to sales tax. I mean, can budgets be tightened? Can this? As an example, according to figures that I got off the internet, people in Illinois, state of Illinois, pay 2.32% of their value of their property in real estate taxes. We're the second highest in the nation. New Jersey pays 2.38%. Our neighboring states are down about half of that. And so what happens to housing here in Illinois? Whenever we are almost double the percent we pay for $1,000 of valuation. And it's not just Marion, it's all the taxing bodies. Something has to be done, because I see it personally when people come in and looking and not want to settle here because of real estate taxes.
well, a couple of things here. The school district, of course, levies and collects about 60% of the real estate tax.
And I'm not saying Marion is the main culprit.
Well, I know, but what I'm trying to tell you is we've tried to keep a tight belt on our fiscal.
I realize that.
And there are some things beyond our control, like this 8-cent increase we're talking about. All things considered, that is a pittance, but we are obligated to do that. Now, other taxing districts may very well have much the same kind of thing. They're obligated to extend their tax rate to cover the expense of whatever it might be. So I think that the ultimate solution has got to come out of Springfield. And frankly, I don't have much confidence.
I don't disagree, but each person that raises it is a contributing factor.
Yeah, but you keep forgetting that our 8 cents is mandated.
You mentioned 8 cents, but that's not what it's costing taxpayer. It's going to cost the taxpayer $120 to $150 a year.
But the city is only 8 cents of that.
I know.
And this, you see, you're preaching to the choir.
I understand that, but I just want to get a point across that
Hey, look at
all of Illinois, and all of Illinois is.
Yeah, but we do not control Illinois. I wish we did. I guarantee you things would be different.
I realize that.
But we don't control Illinois. We don't control Williamson County. We only have control over the city of Marion. And there are some things by statute, by state mandate, we have no choice. This 8 cents is one of them. Now, you're suggesting, I guess, that perhaps we could raise the sales tax.
No, I'm not suggesting.
You're not suggesting that?
No.
Okay, all right, what are you suggesting?
Looking at your future revenue, you're talking about the increase an amount of business. Well, the amount of business increases the amount of sales tax.
Exactly.
Look at your projected budget, see if it can be taken out of that. Look at other methods is the only thing I'm saying.
Yeah, and we have done that. We have done it. We know that we're going to sustain pretty serious increases in obligations this coming year. They probably will be more than we're going to receive in sales tax from a new business. This is something that we have to contend with continuously.
Okay.
And I appreciate your concern, but I want you to understand that this council is very conservative, and it's done its best to keep control of things.
Thank you.
Hey, Jerry, one thing I want to point out, these figures that we get are done by actuaries, and they send those figures to us of what they believe we should, obligate to our pensions. I mean, Steve doesn't come up with them. The mayor doesn't come up with them. We receive those, and we're actually not going with the top figure, are we, Steve?
Not, we are with the
Fire.
fire.
We are with the fire,
Not
but
with the police.
not with the police.
You can't go under because then you'd be burned upon
Yes.
increases in the future, which would be unsustainable.
Yeah, it'd be devastating.
It would be devastating. If-
Yeah, and it's really kind of complicated because, these, and I think it was 2 years ago, they changed the formula and made it even worse. Our obligation went up more. So.
Yeah, but that was the fault of the CPA organization.
Yeah, so I mean, that in as much is a big contributing factor.
Yeah. What is it? General Accounting Principles?
Gatsby.
GAP, G-A-P. And people are not aware of the organization that really does the calculating and imposes a lot of stuff that we wind up having to contend with. But that's beside. Anyone else have something you'd like to say? Speak up. You're here. Now's the chance to chew on the commissioners.
Wait, Mayor, leave us out of it.
Well, do any of you have a question that we haven't answered?
Mayor, just,
We're just like Jerry, we just wanted to maybe come from another source than property taxes.
Yeah. And believe me, that's why the city property tax is as low as it is, because we have a historic record over the years of keeping the real estate tax, property tax for the city as low as we can get by with. And as we've said here, I guess repeatedly, the bulk of the tax money from the real estate tax goes to fund the police and fire pensions, and we are obligated to do that. So you say, well, why don't you use more of the sales tax money? Well, we keep having increase in our expenses. And if we take money out of the sales tax, then it's got to come from someplace else. So it isn't a open and shut proposition. All I can say is that I'm proud to be a member of this council with these fellows who have fiscal responsibility. You see, every one of us here pay real estate taxes. I don't like taxes. I don't want to pay taxes. I pay federal tax because if I don't, they'll put me in jail. I pay property tax on my home because if I don't, they'll sell it for taxes. So everybody is between a rock and a hard place. And we are trying to make the rock as soft as possible. I think that's what we've got a pretty good record doing, and we will continue. Okay.
You know, Mayor, earlier in the year, we sat through quite a tenuous process on our budget, and, you know, we went through it line item by line item and looked at areas that, I don't think everybody got what they asked for in the departments either, you know, so, but trying to keep everything under the, you know, the levels that, you know, projected sales
We
tax, so.
sustain, yeah.
And we're probably gonna have to ask our superintendents again this year to, you know, keep their budgets, you know, 0% increase.
Yeah. Well, we'll do what has to
What
be.
is the total budget for the city of Marion?
What is our total budget, Steve?
Harold, 40 million.
About 40 million.
It's about 40 million. That includes all expenses.
You're only looking for 258,000 out of 40 million, right?
Yeah, yeah. That's what the 8 cents amounts to, 258,000.
But it amounts to each homeowner and each resident, you know, a lot more than 8 cents.
Well, it depends. See, if, for instance, you had a $50,000 evaluation on a house, the increase would be $13. That's what.
Not very many $50,000 homes.
Okay, that means that, take one at 25,000, the increase would be half of the 13, 6.5. This is the reality that we're talking about. And of course, if you had to have a $100,000 evaluation, your tax would be $26,000. So you see.
Yeah.
$26.
Oh, 26, what did I say, 26 million?
I think Jerry's right, they're right.
Yeah. Yeah, $26. So if you look at it realistically, you'll see that the 8 cents is not going to affect you very much. We said for the 50,000 assessed valuation, the tax would be $13. If your house was valued at $25,000, then the tax would be $6.50 increase. Now, there are not very many people who own a home who cannot afford an increase of $6.50.
If you had a $350,000 fourplex, what would that?
Well, okay, all right. If you have $200,000, you can do a little calculating.
52.
$200,000, the increase in the tax would be 52. So if you had a $400,000,
78.
the increase in the tax would be $104.
Your tax is higher than regular residential.
What?
We're taxed at a different rate.
It's in
Oh, well, that's a different story then.
I mean, it's part of our portion, though, it'd be lower, right?
Yeah, well, I do not know a difference.
The
What's,
rate's the same. They may not get exemptions, but the rate doesn't change.
right, so, yeah, you wouldn't get the exemption on commercial property that you would on your personal residence. Yeah, but the tax rate is the same regardless, whether it's a residence or a fourplex or whatever.
I think what she's trying to say is that multiple units affect, it's not just.
It's not just $26.
Yeah, you have multiple,
Well,
and we haven't had a chance to increase our rent, so we haven't been able to pass it along to our tenants. It takes 6 months to a year, maybe.
Well, this won't happen,
Yeah.
this won't happen the next July.
This doesn't happen until
This
July.
will be in July of
We had one
2017.
last year.
Yeah, and it's,
So
Yeah.
we're just, we can't keep up with the increase.
yeah, but see, you're experiencing the same problem that we in the city government are experiencing. Our obligations, our expenses keep increasing every year. I don't know of a single year that they've gone down. Now, when that happens, we have to find a means of revenue to support that. It isn't easy. You see, we try to keep a balance between what we need and what we can reasonably try to get. And this is one reason why here we're only having an 8 cent, $100 valuation increase. Now, it won't be any different whether it's a commercial property or if it's a residence. Now, the big thing about it is, of course, you do not get the exemptions on business property that you get in a residence. Have homestead exemption and all things of that sort. You don't get those on commercial property. So, all right, if there's no other question or comment,
Question.
okay.
The amount of money that's going in for this 8 cents that's going into the pension plan, is that something that will be dedicated specifically to that pension plan?
Oh, that is levied for pension, it has to go to the pension.
Okay, so there's no way that you can, I know that.
No, give us credit.
It's not what I'm
I don't know what they might do in Carbondale or Heron or someplace, but no. Pension money goes to the pension fund.
Not like Social Security.
Yeah, like Social Security.
Yeah, they rob it every day.
Yeah, okay, now what was,
Okay, he wasn't elaborate, that's fine.
yeah, go ahead, what was,
Thank you for letting me speak out.
okay. All right, if not, then this special meeting will be adjourned. We appreciate everybody attending, and the regular council meeting is supposed to start at 6:30, and it's 25 to 7, so if you care to, we'd appreciate you sticking around. Having said that, we've adjourned the special meeting. We will